Kalkalosh Boker Or, Masechet Batra Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph 136a1 says the Mishnah, Hakotev Nechasav Levanav. If somebody is going to write his properties to his children, Tzarich Sheichtov Me'ayom Ulachar Mita. So we're on the Mishnah. Yeah, everyone has it? Mishnah Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph 246 lines down. Somebody comes and he writes his properties to his children. He has to write Me'ayom ulachar mita, but this is a shtar matana. So therefore, since it has to be a shtar matana, it has to be done from today. Because if he doesn't write Me'ayom, it sounds that it's going to be after death. Now we know that after death, there's no matana. We already learned this a few times. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, Eno tzarich. You don't have to write down Me'ayom, right? But rather, even if you just wrote down ulachar mita, right? The matana is going to be chal, right, on the proper time. Fine. Very, very good. Next, akotev nechasav livno lachar moto. If somebody is going to write, right, for his properties to his son after death, yeah? So he says, right, like this. He's going to write the properties to his son. So he says like this, he says, which means that it's going to be only after death. So then he cannot come and write it, and he cannot sell it to somebody else. Why? Because the goof is already kanui from now to his son. Which means that at the end of the day, right, when you're going to come and give him a tana, so it comes out that it's already not his. So if the father wanted to sell it, he can't, because it's already written off. It's ki'ilu that it's already given to the son. So even though the father's still alive, but the second that he wrote it, and remember, this is going to be a matana, so therefore it comes out that the goof is going to be kanui immediately, and the perot are going to be for after mita. It's ki'ilu that the body, right, we say the body, but it means the actual land or whatever it is, that is belonging now already to the son, but the father still holds on to the fruits. So the father is the one that gets all the rent, but he can't sell it. Why can't he sell it? Because it's not his. Yeah, he wrote it off. That's it.
Can he lend it?
Of course he can lend it. He can do whatever he wants. That belongs to him, but he cannot rent because the body belongs to the son.
Doesn't give it back.
No, he takes it back. What's the thing? Yeah, he's a problem renting, and then they're gonna stay there for another 20 years. Same thing. The renting and lending is the same thing. The same halakha would apply to the son. Also, he cannot sell it. Why? Because they're in the possession of the father. Meaning, which one?
He's going to take the fruit now. Give him a shot.
No. He's not taking the fruit. The father gets the fruit. The father is getting the fruit, right? And very good. No, so there's obviously a reason why the father is giving it to his son, right, and not to somebody else. It could be that he's changing between one and another, right? Fine. So now what happens now? He comes and he says, right, as follows, right? By the way, when it says Hakotev nechasav livno, the same salamim shows mishu acher, right? Zabidi yukoto alacha the mishu acher. Lav davka son. That's why even if there's not going to be a Yerusha, it could be a president, it could be anything. You understand? Well, this is matana. All this is matana right now, right? This right now, right, is matana. This is matana. Yeah. So machara av. What happens if the father comes and he wrote it? He sold this in a chasim stam mechurim, right? It's going to be sold, right? And ad shiamut until he dies. And once he dies, right, that's it. It goes back to the son. Machara ben, but if the son sells it, en lo lokeach ben klumat shiamutav, the exact opposite. The son, meaning the buyer, the purchaser, has nothing until the father dies. So once the father dies, then yes, it's true. He could come and he could take everything. But until the father dies, everything belongs, right, to the father. So therefore he can't. So okay, so he sold it. But it's a sale that's going to only take place in another, whatever it is, whenever the father, right, after 120.
And he could,
okay?
He's the owner now.
Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. What does it help now that you wrote down me'ayom ulachar mita? What does it help? Hatnan, we already learned in the Mishnah Gitin. Me'ayom ulachar mita, get veno get. It's a get and it's not a get, meaning it's a get misafek, but it's not vadai. Why? Because the question is, what is the ulachar mita? Remember, what he says me'ayom. Me'ayom means today. Ulachar mita means after death. What is he saying? Why? Because is it like a tanai? Is it like as if to say that it's going to be a condition, right? And once he dies, it's a condition was fulfilled, and therefore it's going to be chal lemafreya? Or la'achar mita is like a retraction of what he said. He said me'ayom. Then he said ulachar mita. Is la'achar mita condition, or is it a retraction of me'ayom? And therefore it's a get, then no get. So he met, and therefore if the guy dies, he could only do, she could only do chalitzan or yibum. Because remember, if it's considered a get misafek, she can never do yibum anymore. Now, but since it's only misafek, she still has to do the chalitza. So therefore, she has to do, but it's a safek. So therefore, the Gemara is saying, what does it help for me to write down? It's all about. It's not like a final. It's not something 100% that we know that it's going to be good. So says the Gemara, right? Hatam misafkalan, right? Over there to do with the get, we have a doubt. Itnai have, ichazara have. Whether it's considered a tnai or a chazara. Aval hacha, but over here, hachi kamale. This is what it means to say. Gufa kenemeayom peida leachar mita. Meaning to do the get, right? I only have two choices. Whether it's going to be choser or not. Yeah, fine. But to do with the halachot over here, I could split it. I could say when he said mehayom is a guf. Right. When he says lachar mita, that's the perot. And therefore, since I could split it up, it's not a doubt. By get, it's a doubt because I don't know what it is. It's a contradictory. So it's either one or the other. Here, I could split it. So therefore, because I could split it, right, that's why there's not going to be a doubt. Okay? Says the Mishnah. And that's the two dots. Rabbi Yosef Omer. Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, "Eno tzarich," that you do not. He argues on Rabbi Yehuda, and he says you do not have to write me'ayom ulachar mita. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Baravua chalash. Rabbi Baravua was sick. Alle gabe Rav Huna Rav Nachman. So Rav Huna Rav Nachman came to visit him. Amale Rav Huna Rav Nachman, says Rav Huna to Rav Nachman. Ba mine halacha ke Rabbi Yosef. Or en halacha ke Rabbi Yosef. Is halacha like Rabbi Yosef or not? Remember that Rabbi Yosef argues on Rabbi Yehuda, and he says that you do not have to write me'ayom ulachar mita, even without write me'ayom, it's fine. Yeah. No, just ulachar mita is going to be fine. Elmaleh, he says, Tamad Rabbi Yosef lo yadana. 1 second. So he says, I don't know the reasoning of Rabbi Yosef. Why is it that Rabbi Yosef holds, right, that you don't have to write me'ayom? Why? Halachai ba'amine. Right? We're going to ask from Rabbi Ravua. Elmaleh, he says, At ba minei halacha ilo, v'tama ani amin lecha. You have to ask, is halacha like him or not? And then I'm going to tell you the reasoning. You ask what's halacha, and then I'll explain to you the reason. So, ba minei, so he's going to ask, Elmaleh, hachi amar Rav, halacha like Rabbi Yosef. So the Batra Daf Elmaleh, right, he told him, Hainu tamed Rabbi Yosef, the reason Rabbi Yosef was, the amar zmano shel shtar mochiach alav. The ta'arich, the date on the shtar, is the tochacha, and therefore when he wanted to give it, meaning you don't have to write the words mehayom. The fact that on the shtar, on the document, it's already written the date, that is mehayom. Because why am I writing it for you today? Because that means from today. So therefore that's what it is. And that's what we also learned in the Braita. Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rabbi Yosef says, Eno tzarich, you don't have to write mehayom. Why? So we have a Braita exactly explaining the reasoning of Rabbi Yosef, just like we said. What does that mean? When you come and you write a document, right? That's when you're giving to me. That's like somebody that's going to come, write me a check, and say, no, but I didn't want you to cash a check until... So 1 second. So why are you writing me the check, the date today? If you're writing me the date today, that means it's just for today. So that's what Rabbi Yosef says. And that's how we paskin. It says the Gemara... Ba mine Rava ben Rav Nachman. So asks Rava from Rav Nachman, Ba'akna'a mahu, a shtar that's written a kinyan, what's halacha? Does Rabbi Yehuda argue on Rabbi Yosef that also in such a shtar that it's written me'ayom, right? That it has to be written me'ayom or not? So Elmaleh, he tells him, Ba'akna'a, when we're talking about a kinyan, eno tzarich, you don't have to write it. Why? Because mina stam, right? He had kavanah to do that. The kinyan is going to be chal miyad, meaning once there's a kinyan involved and the kinyan is going to be done immediately. That's already, then even Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't have to write the word right me'ayom. But Rav Papi argues and he says, Ika kniyata de tzarich. There are some shtarot that you do have to. And some of them that they don't have to. Yeah? I think I should take away the phone. Yeah? What does that mean? Right? Akneye, so Rav Papa, right? Rav Papa is coming and he's going to explain, right? If it's written Akneye, which means that they're going to come and acquire it, right? That means the Edim write down that he's doing a kinyan, the kanina mine, and then they acquired it from him, lo tzarich, then they don't have to do it. Because if they already did the kinyan, right? So then that's it. There's nothing else what to do. Yeah, he doesn't have to write down me'ayom. Kanina mine, the aknie, but if it's going to be written first, kanina mine, that they did a kinyan, and then kanuoto, you have to write it because then it's no chacha that he was mitkaven that the kinyan was going to be chal miyad. Meaning it all depends on the order of what's written. If it's written aknie, okay, one more time, aknie means shekanuoto, which means the edim are coming and writing down that the one that's giving over the property has the kavanah to be makneh, right, for the mekabel. And then at the end it says v'kaninu mineh, and we did a kinyan with them. We did the kinyan. So therefore, if they did the kinyan, that's it, right? You don't need to write it. Exactly. You don't have to write Tamiyam. But if it's written the other way around, that kaninu mimenu, and then only at the end was it written, right? Right? So then you have to write down the me'ayom. So ask the Gemara, matkifla Rav Chanina Misura. So Rav Chanina Misura asks, Miika mide da'anan lo yadinan, the safre yade? He says, is there something that the Chachamim do not know? Because the majority of the Chachamim are not Bekiim, and the Sofrim do know? How does that work? At the end of the day, right, you have to remember, the Safra the Daina is not a Dayan.
No.
Safra the Daina is like a Sofer. He's a scribe. So not that he's going to know more than the Dayanim, meaning a Sofer is not going to know more than the Dayan. So how could it be that we don't know what's going on, right? Because a lot of the Chachamim, they're not experts in this halakha, and now you're going to tell me, no. But the Sofer, he knows. So it depends how the Sofer is going to write it, which order. So then he's going to know, do I have to write down, right? Do I have to write down Me'ayom or not? Says, how does that work? So, Shalunu, the Safre Dabaye, they asked the Safre Dabaye, Viade, they know. The Safre de Rava, Viade, they also know. So therefore, he says, 1 second, it comes out that they're all Bekim, they all know, right? And by the way, you should know that happens a lot of times. The Sofrim, since they're always writing, whether it's going to be Gitin or Shtarot or all these things, they know the order, they know the halachot. That means even if they're not really a Dayan on their own, but mamash, they know a lot because they're there all the time. They're always with the Dayanim. They're always learning new things. They get this expertise with a lot of the experience. So it says the Gemara, Rav Huna ben Yeshua Amar ben Aknei v'Kanina ben Kanina v'Aknei lo tzarich. Comes Rav Huna, the son of Yeshua, he says, you know what? I don't care about the order. Whether you wrote first Aknei and then Kanina v'Aknei, Kanina v'Aknei, you don't have to write down Me'ayom. Uveduchran pitgameh. And this is going to be a zikaron devarim that was in front of us. That's going to be a plea. Meaning, sometimes people write down notes. What do you mean notes? Notes of things that occur. So, for example, you write a secretary of a board. What is he supposed to do? He writes down notes of the meeting. What are notes of the meeting? This is what occurred. And then write the minutes of the meeting, right? And those notes are, so here, it's like, this is a zikaron devarim. These are like the minutes that you're coming and you're writing it down. And that's what they also do in a bedin also. Right? They come, they write everything down, and that's what they do in court cases. This is what happened. They brought this one, they go through it. So Amar Rav Kana says, Amrita lishmate kemed Rav Zvid min Arda. We said this in front of Rav Zvid min Arda. V'amali, and he told me, Atun hachi matnitullah. Right? You guys, this is where you learn it from. From Ana Ma'ach, but we learn it from somewhere else. Amar Rav Nachman be'akna'a. Whenever it's written kinyan, eno tzarich. You don't need to write me'ayom. Ben akni v'kanina mineh, ben kanina mineh v'akneh. Whether it's one or the other, you don't need to. But in the minutes, that there's going to be a machlok between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. So it comes out, right? We're right by the 2 dots on the bottom of the page. So it comes out one more time. Even though before we wanted to make a differentiation between the language, the usage of the language, whether you first wrote akni and kanina mineh or kanina mineh ve'akni, that we said that if you first wrote down aknieh and then you wrote down kanina, which means that they did the kinyan, you don't have to write me'ayom. But if you did the other way around, you do have to write me'ayom. In the 2 different writers, whether it's going to be Rav Kahana or Rav Huna ben Yeshua, they say there's no difference. You don't have to write down me'ayom. The second, there's a kinyan in the document, kaddish. he's already acquiring it. You don't need to know which one did he write first. No. There's a kinyan. The kinyan, they did a kinyan. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. If it's going to be zichron devarim, which means, listen, we're going to write down, by the way, there was a conversation and this is what happened, and he said this and he said that. Zichron devarim, there's going to be a machloke between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. Kal Kadosh, right? The bottom of Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, the 2 dots. Okay, Akotev, second last line. Akotev nechasav livno lachar moto. Somebody's going to write a property to a son after death. Itmar, it was stated. Machara ben, the son sells it, bechayav, right? During the lifetime of the father. Umeta ben bechayav. Now the son dies. During the lifetime of the father.
The life of the father.
Yes.
And then he dies.
And then he dies.
But is the cell, before he dies, is the cell valid? No.
1 second. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, lo kana lokeach. He didn't acquire it at all. Not even after the death of the father. It goes back to the Yerushim of the father. Right? That's the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan. Right? Now why? It makes sense. Because since he wrote the properties to this boy, and then the boy sold it, so we already said that nothing actually happens until the father dies. Now this guy died, meaning the son died, right? So the son died, so nothing was valid. It never came to him, right? So which one? Yeah. Why not? So Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says he didn't buy anything. It goes back to the father's inheritors. There's nothing there. The Shakish says kana lokeach. He does acquire it. What exactly is the machloke between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan? So says Rabbi Yochanan Amar lo kana lokeach kinyan perot ki kinyan aguf tami. He says what happens is, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he says, why is it that the purchaser did not acquire anything? He holds that when you're going to come and you're going to do kinyan perot, right? It's like kinyan aguf, and therefore, right, the father, right, that he does have the kinyan perot, he's considered the baalim of the karka, right? Exactly, it's connected, and therefore, when he comes and he says now he's going to say, you're right, you could have deeds and everything, but at the end of the day, there's nothing there, right? It's very, very nice, but at the end of the day, he says it's kinyan aguf. So therefore, who's the one that has it right now? It's the father. So therefore, it doesn't belong to the son. The Shakish holds kana lokeach. He does acquire it. Why? He holds kinyan perot. It's love kinyan aguf tami. It's not like kinyan aguf, and therefore, if it's separate, the son could come and he could sell the land, but the perot has nothing to do with the land, and therefore, okay, fine. So then, now, okay, so he died. Doesn't matter. But now, when the father dies, the guy comes and he acquires it. So therefore, there's a machloket between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. This machloket is dependent upon kinyan perot, kinyan aguf, or right, not kinyan aguf. He comes and he says, this is a machloket. We already argued about this. Why? The Itmar Bezu stated, Hamocher sadeu leperot. Imagine a person comes and he sells a field just for the fruits. Meaning, I'm selling you the fruits of the land. I'm not selling you the land. I'm selling you the fruits of my land. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, you're allowed to come and you bring the bikurim. Yeah? So imagine, I'm buying your fruits. I'm not buying the land. The land does not belong to me. But I'm buying the fruits. I'm allowed to come and I bring the bikurim. Mevi bikure. Says Rabbi Yochanan, obviously why? Because I'm an owner. Why am I the owner? Because according to Rabbi Yochanan, kinyan perot, kinyan aguf. Right? We already learned it. It's written in Furash. The Shakish comes and he says, Meviveno kore. You could bring the bikurim. For sure, it's the first fruits, but you can't kore. Because the kore, when you're going to come and you're going to read it, it has to be your field. Right? So it's all your field. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan says, Mevive kore kasava kinyan perot, kinyan aguf dami. The Shakish comes and he says, Meviveno kore. Kinyan perot lav ke kinyan aguf dami. Right, that it's not considered kinyan aguf. So therefore, right, the lokeach is not nechshav like bala sadeh. So therefore, you can't say asher natata li Hashem hadama asher natata the land that he gave to me. He didn't give it to you. So therefore, this same machloket that you're saying over here to do with a present to a child or not, we already learned it. We learned it already. The exact same machloket between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish to do with if you sold a field only for fruits. You didn't sell a field. You sold the fruits. So says the Gemara, no, we still have to learn both machlokot. Why? Amar lecha Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan. Af al gav de ve'alma, even though, right, the ve'alma, kinyan perot, ke kinyan aguf tam, that kinyan perot is like kinyan aguf, hacha itzrich, here, right, we need it. Why? Sal kadaita chamina, I would have thought to say, abba legabebre, achu. Right? That means the father is going to be mochel to his son, right? And he's going to be maknelo the guf legamre. And therefore, the fruits that he left over is not considered kinyan guf. Meaning there's an extra chidush by our Mishnah that had to do with the father and the son. I would have thought to say that, listen, in a regular case, you're only selling the fruits. So it's only the fruits. It's not the guf karka. But in this case, it's a father to son. So the father's, he's being muchel. He already gives him everything, kil. So Kamash Malan comes to teach you, no, it's not the truth. That even in that case, as a Yochanan, the father still has the kinyan haguf, right? He still has it. The Shaki says, even though usually kinyan perot is not like kinyan haguf. Here I need it. Here I need a why. I would have thought to say kol legabe nafshe, and any place where a person is going to give from nechasim to another person, and he's leaving over kinyan perot, afilu bimkom bere nafshe adifale. Even if it's going to be his son, he always comes first. So since he's always coming first and he left something over, meaning he could have given the entire thing to his son. He didn't do that. He left something over. So the fact that he left something over, that means that he gets to himself much more. So Kamash Malan comes to teach you. That's why the Shakish had to tell you that even in such a case, kinyan perot is not considered kinyan haguf. So now that we got, one more time, you have Rabbi Yochanan, the Shakish, machloket kinyan perot ki kinyan haguf or not. And therefore, obviously, the nafkamina is going to be, can the son sell it, b'chaya abba, and then the son died, does the purchaser get it or not? The same exact halacha we learned by, if a person just sold the field for the perot, but not for the guf. And again, we needed both cases. Now that we brought that down and we have that clear, one more time, machloket Rabbi Yochanan de Shakish. So now we're going to start the tax. What does that mean? We're going to start going back and forth. Because obviously each one has to defend their position, right? And they have to, offense, defense, as they say. So let's start. So Eitvei Rabbi Yochanan le Shakish. So Rabbi Yochanan is the one that he's going to start. And he's going to start, Rabbi Yochanan asks against Shakish. Nechasai lecha ve'acharecha yirash ploni. Imagine a person comes and he says, my properties are given to you, right? And after you, yirash ploni. Somebody else is going to inherit. Meaning, right, that he's giving it to one person, right, as a matana, but after that matana, it's going to be a Yerusha, to somebody else. Ve'acharav, yirash ploni. And after that, another person. Meta rishon, if the first person dies, kana sheni, second person acquires it. Meta sheni, the second person dies, kana shlishi, the third person acquires it. Meta sheni, so that's simple, because he said it's going to go to Mr. A, then B, then C, so everything went in order. So it was perfect. What happens though? Meta sheni b'chaya rishon. The second person dies, right, during the lifetime of the first person, right? So yachzirun nechasim liyorshei rishon. So it goes back to the yorshim of the first one. It doesn't go to the third one because there was a cut, right? There was a pasek, babahaki, there was a pasek, right, in the chain. You had Mr. A, B, C. If Mr. B died, right, before that, so therefore it goes back to Yoshim of A. So it says Rabbi Yochanan, Ve'im ita, which one? Yeah, forever. Ve'im ita, so now says the Gemara, this was a Braita now. Now says Rabbi Yochanan, Ve'im ita, now if you're going to tell me now, Kinyan Perot is not considered Kinyan Aguf, right? When the second person died, Liyorshei noten mi ba'ele. Right? I don't understand you. It should go back to the Yorshim, right, of the one that gave it. Not the first one. One more time. How many people are you have involved here? You have the original person, right? The original person. He's the giver. Okay, very careful. Listen carefully. You have the giver, right? Then you have the A, which is the first receiver, B, second receiver, C, third receiver. Remember that when everyone dies in order, it's actually perfect. Mr. A dies, it goes to B. Mr. B dies, goes to C. Chazako Baruch, everything perfect. But what happens if it didn't work out that way? Mr. B died before Mr. A. So says the Braita, what happens? It goes back to Mr. A's, how do you call this? His Yorshim, his inheritors. meaning it never goes to Mr. C and it never goes to Mr. B because Mr. B already died. So therefore, it goes to the Yorshim of Mr. A. No, it already was by Mr. A. Mr. A already had it. Mr. A already has it. Now Mr. B dies during the lifetime of Mr. A, and then Mr. A dies. What does the Gemara say? The fact that Mr. B already died, it doesn't go to Mr. B and it doesn't go to Mr. C. It goes to the Yorshim of Mr. A. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me now that Kinyan Perot is not considered Kinyan Aguf, so therefore, one second, if Kinyan Perot is not considered Kinyan Aguf, so therefore the Guf didn't, so that it should go back not to Mr. A, it should go back to the giver, to the one that was giving it. That's what he asked. So what's going on here? Right? So answers Resh Lakish, Elmaleh comes and he says, Kvar tirgema Rav Hoshaya beBavel. Hoshaya beBavel already explained, Acharecha shane. The word acharecha is a completely different halacha of a matana. Why is it a completely different halacha of a matana? He says, because it's not a regular matana. It's not a regular matana because it's a matana is zman mugbal. It's a zman mugbal. It's not a real present. A real present, right, is something which is forever. Here, it's not a real present. Yeah? V'chen rami Rabba bar Huna kameh de Rav. And that's also what asked Rabba bar Huna in front of Rav. The Amar, and he said, it's different. It's not a regular present. So therefore, you can never come and bring me, right, a regular case. So says the Gemara, but we learned Yachziru liyorshei rishon. So if you're going to tell me now, liyorshei anoten. Now this is exactly like who? Like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said they should go back to Yorshei anoten. That's exactly what's written here, right? So says the Gemara, you're right. It's a nahi. It's a machloket tanaim. What does it mean machloket tanaim? According to one opinion, right? Do we say kinyan perot is kinyan aguf or not? And therefore it's a machloket. And therefore this entire question, right, is actually comes on machloket. Does it go back to Yorshei hanoten or Yorshei harishon? Basically the Yorshim of the giver or the Yorshim of the Mr. A. It's machloket. And since it's a machloket, you can't bring any proof. Why? The Tanya was obviously the Gemara is going to continue by bringing a proof, right, of this.